Okay. Shall we start with the most absurd news that I've seen in a long time?
What is the most absurd one? There are many absurd ones.
We've picked the news well this week. Let's start with this one. So, dopamine dressing refers to the idea that wearing clothes that we like can activate the release of dopamine, which is the feel-good chemical in our systems.
Yes.
This is
No, I mean,
this is just wrong on so many levels.
it's nice alliteration. I mean, it sounds good. Dopamine dressing. No,
I mean, so
better
does
than
serotonin survival,
yeah. Well, people would
and
like it too, I guess. Oxytocin. Oxytocin was also very popular for a while. Oxytocin. I don't know. That was for love, no?
mhm,
Yeah.
GABA gainers. I don't know. I'm making these up. So basically, yeah, this is a bit. This kind of ties into a whole movement, especially I think in Silicon Valley. It seems to be a tech bro thing. I don't know if that's the case, but that's kind of what it feels like. Like, yes, you can do a dopamine fast or dopamine detox, and you can dopamine dress. It's all bullcrap.
Yeah.
I don't know how to.
It
I
just
don't even
doesn't
know where to
work.
begin. First of all, dopamine has many roles,
Yes, depending on the place where it is, for example, or the
and the
time.
manner of its release, the
Yeah,
concentration, the
duration.
dynamics of it. It helps in decision making. It helps with locomotion. Like Parkinson's disease patients have no dopamine. They're not very sad. Well, they are probably a bit
But
sad, but they're
then,
mostly characterized by being unable to initiate movement.
but then imagine you dress them in bright colors. Wouldn't they move better?
It would be the discovery of a century. Uh,
Yeah, no.
no, in a
Uh,
way, there is. To be fair, there are um, side effects to having Parkinson's disease and the Parkinson treatments, where dopamine is dysregulated. You have too much or too little dopamine in certain brain areas, specifically in those areas. And the most prominent symptom is, difficulty in initiating movement, bradykinesia. But in addition to that, there is, and I have to admit this, there is also um, mood disorders, or it
yeah,
affects your mood. Dopamine does affect your mood. I mean, I'm not denying that. I mean, that's absolutely true. Just the idea that you can dress and that somehow affects your dopamine, and that somehow that affected dopamine helps you in any way.
that's a bit far-fetched. Like, and that's putting it lightly. The far-fetched.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So also the first comment of this tweet is beautiful on this tweet. Maybe you can show it on screen.
If I'm wearing a dopamine dress, it better turn brown in the sunlight. I
Oh, that's not.
love it.
Is that your first? Oh, I have another first comment. It says, "Oh no, absolutely not," with a GIF.
Dopamine fasting is not a thing. Dopamine dressing is not a thing. If it were a thing, we would have to rethink most of what we know about the brain. Um, I'm happy to see these responses of real scientists. The reason, by the way, if anyone's wondering why, if I'm wearing a dopamine dress, it better turn brown in sunlight,
Yeah.
um, you can, neuroscientists can apply dopamine to brain tissue, and it oxidizes very quickly, and then it turns brown. I was once visiting a lab where they uh, test dopamine and they make sensors to measure the concentration of dopamine. So they have pure dopamine that I can put.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've never
Uh,
seen pure dopamine in real life, but
and they can perfuse that into a brain slice, a tiny bit of brain, and they can perfuse dopamine in, and their tubing is normally transparent. And after, they have to replace their tubing every month because it turns completely black and it clogs up with all the dopamine oxidizing.
oh wow, okay.
Dopamine turns brown. That's now a thing, Norepinephrine is somehow blue, but I think that's just a weird, weird convention. Neuroscientists have weird conventions like that.
Maybe it's colored or
Maybe it is.
maybe.
Maybe it's Maybelline. Um, shall we move on? I don't want to hear about dopamine dressing anymore. It just it
But
annoys
but
me.
doesn't it make you happy that people like to dress in bright colors? This is
Sure, but if anything, that will increase your serotonin, not your dopamine.
yeah. This was also what I was wondering. But I think serotonin is the neurotransmitter of a few years ago, or was it only oxytocin? Did
Well, I mean,
serotonin already have its fame? I don't remember.
well, the whole thing about antidepressants is they act as, well, most of them act as selective
Serotonin.
serotonin reuptake inhibitors, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they make sure the serotonin stays around in your brain for longer,
Yeah.
and that helps with depressive symptoms. So if you have any neurochemical that you would say, okay, this neurotransmitter is involved in happiness,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would pick serotonin.
I would also pick serotonin, but I think the dopamine dressing alliterates nicely
On
with
the
the
other
word.
hand, you could, if you take a drug like cocaine, that's a dopamine receptor antagonist, if I remember correctly,
I don't
uh,
remember.
or
I don't remember.
dopamine reuptake inhibitor. I don't remember. It increases dopamine levels, makes you hyperactive, very good at decision making.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought there were also even antidepressants that work on the dopamine reuptake. I'm not
Probably.
completely sure. Like it depends on the patient, and you need a real psychiatrist to go through the whole list. But
The thing about the brain and the thing about the body actually is it's really good at recycling an idea that works. So if you have a neurotransmitter that does one thing, it's also going to do a dozen other things.
yeah,
Um, that's just the best way I can put it. Which means, for example, in Parkinson's disease, there is too much acetylcholine, another neurotransmitter. They've tried, the first medication against Parkinson's disease was blocking acetylcholine. The problem is you also use your acetylcholine to control your muscles. So patients would get incontinent and lose muscle control, get spasms. Like it has horrible side effects. That's why we now use levodopa. It still has side effects, but they're less severe. Um,
yeah,
the
because
idea that
all
one neurotransmitter does one specific thing is just
yeah,
nonsense.
and this is also the problem with treating things that are very prevalent, like depression. There are antidepressants, but they have many side effects, and some are worse in some people. And you have to try many things before you find something that actually works and manages, like depression or anxiety. So this is like a big problem that these pills act on your whole brain and your whole body, right?
Exactly. Actually, a friend of mine, well, guy I know, uh, let me find him. Where is he? There we go. He recently had a very nice paper on. These days he mostly posts worlds, but he had a nice paper a while ago. Come on, John, where is it? There we go. Oh no, sorry, not a paper. This is a patent that he got
Oh,
for. So this is what we were talking about. Like depending on where you are in the brain, the same medication can have wildly different functions. So what John Reynolds did, um, as you can see in the link, is what he patented is an ultrasonic activator. So you can place ultrasonic transducers on top of your skull. And they will activate the drug in a very specific location because you have multiple beams of ultrasonic sound that converge in your skull, and the point where they converge, that's where they will activate the drug. So you don't need to do invasive surgery. You don't need to implant a cannula. You can just say, okay, I want dopamine only in this one specific region. So you put the transducers on your skull. They put the sound right where it needs to go, and there it's being, the drug is inert, and then it's converted by the ultrasonic waves into an active drug. It's a wonderful treatment. I've talked about him about it a few years ago when I was visiting his lab in Dunedin in New Zealand, and they were testing it out on sheep because this is New Zealand. What other animal do they have in abundance? Apparently, the thickness of the sheep skull is the same as that of a human. That's what he told me.
was the thickness of the skull. Also, the size of the skull should be
I think it's a bit smaller. I don't know.
maybe.
But anyway, he now got a patent for it, and I hope we will see this in humans soon.
Yeah, and
Would be
then
very cool.
this would also work on other drugs, right? Not only to deliver dopamine. This could be adapted.
Well, yeah, the main thing is you need a drug that you can convert from its inert state to its active state through sound waves.
Uh,
I don't know how they do that. That's very advanced chemistry. I'm not
yeah,
an expert, but
but I guess like chemists can engineer more things that would work like that.
mhm.
It's not trivial, but it can be done. It's very interesting.
I trust the chemist.
Yes, yes,
Let's move on. I've had enough of
yes.
this dopamine feast
No more dopamine.
nonsense.